Welcome back to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm hopeful you're watching on SIFTD as a Patreon patron. If you are, Shane can keep the lights on for another week, so thank you, and encourage your friends to support Patreon, or support SIFTD on Patreon, sorry. This week's first question from Twitter comes from @Stringer2355. Do you think Microsoft or Sony will announce a price cut for their systems at E3 2018? I do think we're getting a price cut this year. I'm not sure we get a price cut at E3. And timing of a price cut's tricky because, you know, price cuts are typically done in order to spur sales. And the reason you've had price cuts announced at E3 is because we've had hardware launch at E3. So if you launch the Xbox One S, the skinny box, you know, the white one, or the Xbox One X, then it's appropriate to deal with what all the rest of the systems are going to be priced at. So the legacy hardware has to be priced differently. I don't think we get any new hardware from Microsoft or Sony at E3, so I think the timing of a price cut is probably more September or October than it is June. So my bias is yes in 2018, no at E3, but I don't know for sure. So good question, just my gut that I don't think we have any hardware launching. You might get, you know, different kind of PSVR bundles with PlayStations that end up resulting in a PS4, PSVR bundle that's $50 cheaper than buying them separately. That could be an E3 event, and especially if there's some really cool VR software introduced. But short of that, I don't think so. I think Xbox One X is what any 4K television owner would buy. And so 4K TVs are probably up to 15%, 20% of households. By holiday, they'll be at 35.
Yeah.
By holiday of 19, they'll be at 50. By holiday of 20, they'll be at 75%. Because 4K TVs are getting cheap.
They're really cheap.
Yeah, and so the real problem is that, you know this, and I'm far from an expert, but OLED is so compelling as a technology that guys like me, and I'm like a...
Well, wait.
Yeah, I'm a cutting edge technology guy, but I'm cheap. And so I want the best, but I don't want to pay $5,000 for it. So I'm waiting because honestly, but for the Xbox One X, there's nothing in 4K that I give a shit about.
There's no reason.
So yeah, there's no movies that I feel like I have to see in 4K. So I'm waiting until, you know, till a LG OLED TV is $1,000.
Me too.
And I might spend $1,300 or $1,400. I'm not going to spend $3,200. But I think Xbox One X success is perfectly correlated to 4K penetration. I think people will buy it when they get 4K TVs. Next question from YouTube from Luca De Marte 6. Which games that are rumored to make an appearance at E3 excite you the most? Is it Starfield? Definitely not that, because I don't know what that is. A new Fable, a return to Splinter Cell, yeah, I like that one, or another game. I don't know where the rumors are. Look, the rumors I've seen are from the Walmart leak in Canada. There was an Amazon leak. So we've seen Splinter Cell 2018. I like Splinter Cell. I just really suck at stealth games. Like I think that my characters in stealth games are every bit as clumsy as I am. So I'm just not that adept at them, at being quiet. I tried to play Dishonored, for example, without killing anybody because I read that you could do that. And my God, I could not do it. You finally just get fed up and you just freaking blast everybody. So definitely not Splinter Cell. So I would say none of the ones you mentioned. I liked Rage 1, and the Walmart leak said Rage 2. That'd be fun. I like what I like. I'm a Fallout guy, and that's probably not coming this year. I mean, it might be. I'll give you a little suspense. Todd Howard, who runs Bethesda, told me not to miss the Bethesda press event because I would be very pleased at what I heard there. That's all I know. Now, Todd's clearly fucking with me because I don't think we're ready for Fallout 5 or whatever's coming next. But he knows I love that game. But I have a feeling, you know, something big from them. And Rage is good, but it's not like Elder Scrolls. So what am I looking forward to? Anything from Bethesda, because I just love those guys. I even might play Elder Scrolls 6 and just kind of break my string because it might be good.
Just be a wizard so you don't have to use a sword.
We have a hot tub that we got in 2006, and I've never been in it because I freaking hate hot tubs.
Never been in it.
Exactly. I hate hot tubs. So eventually I'm going to get dragged in there and I might go, oh, this is really good. I don't know what I've been missing. I've only had one massage in my life, and I didn't like it, so I haven't had one since. And, you know, again, my wife can't figure out why I don't like massages, and I just had a bad one, so.
Translation, first time you meet Pach, you better make a good impression.
Exactly. So Elder Scrolls just doesn't interest me, but if Todd Howard tells me to play it, I'll play it. From Patreon, our next question comes from Keith McWomble. Dear Pach, with so many games being months or years away from release, do Best of E3 awards benefit developers or publishers when it comes to sales? Wow, good question. Do developers ever get a bonus for winning E3 awards like with Metacritic scores? Is it just a marketing thing where they can slap logos on the box or in a trailer? Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I'd say that most consumers are more interested in a Metacritic score than they are with all the best of, you know, game of the year stuff. The only time I think that those little logos slapped onto the box matter is when you're buying the Game of the Year edition, and it tends to be with more content. You've probably got like 3 or 4 download packs built in, and you know you're getting like a lot of stuff. But if it just says Game of the Year, it's like, how many games of the year are there? I mean, you've got every journalist in the world has a Game of the Year awards, and if it's Game of the Year from IGN, yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty reputable, but it's going to be a different one from IGN, from GameSpot, from Game Trailers, from, you know,
SIFTD.
from Fortune. Fortune magazine will have a Game of the Year. Who cares, right? So at the end, no, I think Metacritic matters more. And Metacritic's good. Metacritic aggregates scores. They kind of weight the scores based on the number of reviews the guy has done before, and so you end up getting, you know, legitimate review scores. I tend to not look at aggregate scores personally. I tend to look at review scores and read 3 or 4 reviews by guys I respect, because there are guys, like I'll read a Shane review and I don't always agree with everything Shane says, but he lays it out and it's articulate, and I go, okay. And if the thing Shane didn't like in a game is something I don't give a shit about at all, great, I overcome it. If the thing he really loved is something I don't like at all or care about at all, I'll overlook that. But I actually think he's thorough. I feel that way about Jim Sterling. I share kind of the same tastes as Jim Sterling in games, and when Jim Sterling highlights something that he says is really poorly executed, I'm like, yeah, you're right. So that guy, I mean, a lot of people hate him. I love the guy. I think the guy he's smart and he's thorough. So again, it really depends. I don't just blanket read like a Game Informer review. I look at who wrote the review, and I think they're all generally pretty good. But I'm not going to call these guys out because I know them all, but I have guys at Game Informer that I'm like, oh, if that guy liked it, I'm buying it. And if he didn't like it, I'm not buying it. Our last question this week from SIFTD, from Norix Nessie. Do you think Nintendo will ever go back to having a live E3 press conference like Sony and Microsoft rather than releasing a pre-taped direct presentation? What are the pros and cons of each approach? You know, I think Nintendo has had a lot of disruption with the death of Mr. Iwata, and first his illness. So to be fair, you know, I know they started doing Nintendo Directs before that, but he got sick, and then he got better, and then he got sick again, and then he died. And, you know, unfortunately, all of his kind of episodes were right around E3. So I think that was real disruptive for them to plan events with him on stage. And I got to say, you know, notwithstanding my criticism of his management, I thought he was great on stage. I mean, I think he was fun. He was happy. You know, I think that just everybody at Nintendo is fun to watch on stage. I mean, they just are, and they're clearly enjoying themselves, and they're genuine good people, and their products. Reggie's awesome. On stage, Reggie is freaking awesome. You know, Miyamoto is like a 55-year-old or 60-year-old kid. He's like 10 years old with his smile and how fun he, I mean, that guy, you can tell, and Reggie too, they're just passionate. And I think Iwata too. I mean, they were passionate. So I think Iwata's passing was really disruptive. You know, he was replaced by this Mr. Kimishima who's retiring in May. I mean, and that guy's older, but he never appeared on stage. And it was like, they picked a guy who's not going to replace Iwata on stage. And there's a new guy, and I can't remember his name, but the new guy is
Murakawa?
Could
I
be.
believe it is.
Yeah, I you know what? I read the press release and I'm like, don't know him. I'll internalize it eventually, but I don't know who he is. But he's in his 40s. You know, I've never laid eyes on him. He could be the most engaging character ever, and if he's another Miyamoto or Reggie, that'll be awesome, and maybe they'll bring it back. It's not happening this year. So give that guy. That guy's not even becoming CEO until 2 weeks before E3. So no way is he going to do it. So the answer is, I hope Nintendo brings that back. I think E3, the value of E3 is the spectacle of E3. I think that, I think that gamers like to watch their developers and their management of the companies they love get up there and be passionate, and those guys reaffirm their commitment to their customer, which is the guys who are watching. So I think that really has value. And so I don't want to criticize Nintendo and say they made a mistake. They could not manage through the process of Iwata getting sick, and it was cancer, and he had surgery, like literally canceled E3. I remember this, like a day or two before. And then, he was there the next year, but we didn't know how sick he was, and then he died the next year. The guy, went through this physical, medical trauma, and it just disrupted their whole, way of presenting. So that's unfortunate, because he was an instrumental guy in the company strategy and the consumer relationship and the message. And I think if it had been left to Miyamoto and Reggie, yeah, we would have had presentations. But the head guy not there was hard. So then they replaced him with an older guy who was camera shy, and now they replaced him with a younger guy who I don't know. So I hope they get it back. We'll see. We'll see how all these companies handle it. It's hard to have a press conference without a spokesperson. When it's Jamie Kennedy or Mr. Caffeine or Aisha Tyler, it sucks. Thank you for joining us on Pachter Factor. Let's hope you're watching on SIFTD.net and you're a Patreon patron. Shane appreciates any support you can give him so we can keep the lights on. This costs him money, doesn't cost me money. If you're not a Patreon patron and you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. The only thing I ask is that you put a follow Friday at Michael Pachter on your Twitter feed so that your 200 followers will consider learning more about games and watching these shows. So thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.